And then while we do that, then I got to go to the Facebook page and put it there as well. So hang on with me. Ah, why is that doing that? Sorry, guys. This Facebook page is being a little particular. All right, welcome everybody. Glad you're all here. This is the blast off section. You've made it. You've put up with 3 weeks of meeting every day online, virtually. How's been your experience so far? You know, it's always a challenge when the pandemic hit to deliver education to you. And we've done a lot of that. And usually we do it in person. And so we've switched to this virtual format, which makes it kind of hard to really get to know you guys one on one. And now I've been sitting in on pretty much every session and listening to you. So I kind of have an idea. But what do you guys think of the material you've been given so far? And what has stood out to you the most?
I'll go.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Believe it or not, though I missed the live session, I was an hour behind you guys on YouTube. Um, and I did do the disc thing. I did the free one,
Oh,
the
good.
assessment. So looking forward to that class. Um, it's been great. I mean, I know though I've been licensed for a little bit, I didn't have the education. And I feel like the more I sit in scripts, the more I talk to people in the office, the more I do trainings like Ignite, um, I wouldn't have, or I wouldn't be getting the confidence that I'm really starting to feel in my knowledge. And it was really neat having the different agents in the office teaching the class. Everyone had kind of a unique style.
Mm-hmm.
And what stood out to me, I mean, I guess it was just a really consistent life experience with um, with everything. It wasn't like we have to put our nose to the grindstone, do every slide. I've been around a little while. I've owned my business for a long time. I've done lots of conferences and educational sessions in a variety of topics. And I like this because, I did get the Ignite manual. I ordered it. And when I got it, I was like, holy crap, because it's so fat and huge. In fact, the binder never stays together. I'm always losing pieces of paper. But I was like, oh man, it's going to be one of those classes. We're going to go through the whole manual and it's just going to be boring, but it wasn't like that. So I think, I don't know if you've done this virtual format before. I just think it really worked. I mean, we didn't get the class interaction, but um, I don't know. I really felt like I got a lot out of it in this format. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. You bring up a point. You got the manual in a PDF and it was a huge book. You guys take my advice. Go digital as much as you possibly can. I just cleared out my office of books I've been packing around for 14 years with Keller Williams, and it was so much stuff. I'm like, why am I keeping all this? Because I always say, I'm going to go back and refer to it. I'm going to go back and refer to it. And I never have. But I set up my Google Drive years ago and just start everything is digital to me. So I have a digital record of everything. And you'll find in this business there's so much you guys are getting into it where it's all digital now. But there used to be so much paperwork. We would have files on our desk of every transaction we would be dealing with. paperwork, paperwork, paperwork. And now it's you getting the pleasure of everything being digital. Stick with that as much as you can. Thanks, Melissa. Who else would like to share? Go ahead,
Um,
Bernardo.
I'll go after him.
Okay.
I think the most appropriate words for me would be demythologizing and demystifying.
Uh-huh.
I still feel very much like I'm a world away from feeling competent and literate when it comes to how a transaction is made. And I would be just terrified to do it by myself. I wouldn't even venture to. But compared to 3 weeks ago, I have a much stronger idea of what the flow chart is and what the checklists are,
Mhm.
and trusting that that I can have a foundation in terms of being diligent and being honest, and asking open-ended questions, which the script sessions are really validating for, enough to proceed and believe I can be successful.
Mhm. You bring up a good, thanks, Bernardo, for sharing. You bring up a good point. Flow charts and checklists. And those are great to have. And the knowledge of being able to do a transaction. Um, I don't want you guys to have the fear of that. We have enough to help you navigate through that. When I was coaching brand new agents when I first started, I would always say, you know what? We want you to go out and get into escrow, and it's not going to look pretty. It's not going to be perfect. Don't worry about that. We'll help you in the gunk. We'll get you through all that. And as a brand new agent, I remember my first deal. I had no idea what I was doing. I was excited I had the deal, but I still had no idea what I was doing. And I thought my transaction coordinator just did everything. Just give her the file and or them the file and they'll fix it for me. Or the escrow person. I thought the escrow would manage all the paperwork for me. And of course, I learned that that's not how it goes. Um, and my coaching relationship I had with the coach that I did for my first three deals was completely different than what we provide here. My coach met with me a couple times, but she never guided me through the transaction once I had it. She did the best she could, but we give you guys so much hands-on support here. And our compliance process with Mark, which if you've met Mark or sat in on the new agent orientation, he caters to each transaction what you need to have in that transaction and will help you if you read his, once you get into what's called an initial file review, he'll tell you everything that needs to be added into the transaction. And we really help guide you through that. In addition to your coach, if you have a coach, if you're in the launch program, if you don't have a coach, if you're not in the launch program, we have great growth coaches that can also guide you. But Mark and I are always here too. But we want you to go out and mess up. We want you to know that everything's not going to be perfect. And as broker, I've seen it all and I still continue to see it all. I don't know the question to every challenge that comes up with an escrow. I still have to call somebody to mastermind when I come across an issue that an agent has asked me that I really don't know the answer to. Now, that gets fewer and far between, but there's not a day that goes by that a question is not posed to me that I have to research and find out how to help them go through and navigate through that. Good question, Bernardo, and good statement. All right, Madison.
Yeah, so I mean, just to piggyback off both of them, I loved meeting different agents for every class. And then also to know what class they taught. So if we wanted to like ask them some follow-up questions, I know that they kind of specialize in those areas or have like a good grasp on the listing presentation or buyer's agreement and all that stuff. And then also just how important the daily 10-4 is, because we go over it first in every Ignite session on the PDF. So I really understood how important it is to do that every day.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You bring up another good point on that one, Madison. When we first started doing virtual, it was really hard for us to do the daily 10-4 because part of that daily 10-4 meant in class you got on the phone and called people. And that's kind of hard to do in a virtual format. And so the second go, we've done this 3 times, and then the third time I really realized, the second time I realized it, but this time I realized even from what we learned on the last go round was I wanted to make sure the instructors really talked about the daily 10-4 each and every class. Whether or not you do it, that's on you, but at least you're hearing that daily 10-4 about what it is. Your role as a business owner, and the most important thing for you to do, and this is the best advice that every successful agent would tell you, get a database and keep it organized. Get a database, keep it organized. Every top agent will tell you, I wish I would have kept better track of my database. You've met great agents on our calls, and I can name a few of them, but I can also, so I won't point any names, but I'll share. One of the persons you met started with me at the same office, and this individual agent has been really good at his database and keeping in touch with them and building it. And because of that, when the pandemic hit, they didn't have to worry about open houses. They had a database to draw from, and they just built on that database, and they made the most money they've ever made in the business because they had a database. So that's why we talk about the daily 10-4 is just put people in a database. Whether you do something with them, it's not a matter of if or when, and it all comes down to referrals down the road. And you just communicating with them is going to help you in the long run. We're in an information age, and the most important thing, any tech company, what makes Facebook valuable?
Data.
Data. Data, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, it's the users. What makes Facebook valuable is because they have the data of all the users, and they know all the individual users' likes and preferences and dislikes. And it's so micro-targeted with Facebook. Now, good or bad, whether it's you're a consumer selling a consumer product or you're political, that's a whole nother conversation. But they can micro-target that data. Same thing with your database. When you're building out your database, there's those tags. You want to tag everybody. If they're an investor, if they're a first-time home buyer, if they're a condo buyer, if they're a single-family residential, if they have a family, micro-target and build your database. When you're building it, make sure you add those custom tags so that when you want to micro-target, let's say, for instance, you have tag for investor, and you want to speak just to that investor. Well, you don't want to be the agent that's going to blanket a cookie cutter templated email every month to an investor. But with Command, what you can do is you can go in and pull all those investors you have in your database and directly target a message to them on a great investment property that just got listed by our office. Much different than if you were speaking to somebody that was a first-time home buyer, and you wouldn't be sending a first-time home buyer an email about an investment property because they're not going to equate to the two. So as you do your daily 10-4, make sure you're tagging those people. And if you don't know how to do that, ask Selma when you're building your database how to add a tag. And make sure, because down the road, what you're going to be able to do is then micro-target to whatever your niche is. So you'll hear about micro-targeting to either demographic, psychographic, or geographic. Demographic is people of a certain age, and psychographic is people of a certain interest, and then geographic is people within a certain geographic region. Okay? All right. Anybody else want to say anything before we move on? Okay.
I was giving up almost last year.
What's that?
I said I was giving up and blaming people for my own problem because it was a pandemic. And, I've been coming to Keller Williams almost more than 1 year because my classes was there. And then, the 3 days before my exam, I received the email that, they canceled my exam. So again, waiting and then forgetting everything and then just reading everything over and over. And then I've been so sick that getting treatment, and because didn't have insurance, so I was going out of country and coming back.
Mm-hmm.
It was just too much for me. I was giving up. I just was going to leave. And then I think I was bitching and blaming everybody else for my own trouble. But when I went to Colombia, I had time to think, get treatment and, have a good time, vacation. And, I just said, it's just you are, center of your own universe, don't just blame everybody else. If you want to do it, or just stop, nagging. So when I came back, I feel like I can say I'm a new person, too old for that, but I feel my thought became different. So the first things I did, I bought, one big whiteboard I put in my room, and I bought the, scanner from business card. I started scanning the business card, transferring the data as you just said. And I said, I'm gonna start taking the classes again, refresh everything again. The same things I did with the license, because 5 months delay, almost I got everything, I got forgot. So I said, I'm gonna do it one more time. And I can't say, I'm, with my age and experience, I said, I can't say, I can give up, because until you're alive, you have to live your life. So you have to do it and do it and do it and do it. And especially yesterday, when you said about those words, that I pulled it out, and even I forwarded for other people, that is never is late. It just, sometimes you have to put the pause on it. It just it became it coming better and better. It just like I feel like sometimes you know something, as you said, about the agent. Sometimes you know something, but you need somebody remind you, just remind you the same things.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how long you've been in the business, or you knew that, sometimes you get surrounded by lots of stuff that you just your vision get foggy. You need just somebody just clean like your glasses to can see that. So it been good. I mean, back again to scripts and Ignite that I was last year in Ignite, all of the classes is refreshing, and hopefully it's going to be this year going to be much better. Financially, last year was not bad for me. I mean, I made probably half of the goal that I was looking for in different way on stocks and everything, but hopefully this year going to be a glorious year for me. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you for sharing, Aaron. You bring up some important points, and we'll address some of that today. You talked about, it's about my own ability. It's about me quit blaming the outside world. And we'll talk a little bit about there when I share my personal journey with my traumatic brain injury, and when I discovered that we are the creators of our own world, and we can't blame the outside world for what's happening inside our world. We are completely 100% responsible for where we are in our life. And once we accept that, that brings personal empowerment. And we can't look to the government to fix things, or our broker or manager or team leader. It's up to us. It's up to us internally. And once I recognize that myself, then I started having massive changes and massive growth because of that personal empowerment. And then another issue you bring up is when I used to train brand new agents, and I've trained over 1,000, maybe about 1,500 with Keller Williams since my tenure here. A lot of people that have come through the doors that I've personally had the pleasure of being able to affect in some way. What I discovered is you're going to be tested like you've never been tested before starting a new business. And that's what real estate is. You're starting a new business, and you got to recognize you're a business owner now. You are the business. You're the marketing person, the lead generation person, the finance person, the budget person, all that person, because it's just you right now. You don't have a team. And then so you're doing everything, and it's going to test you like you've never been tested, and it's going to be the battle of the wills. You know, in the world, it's um, those that are willing to do the things that they don't want to do when they don't want to do it at the very highest level. In 5 years, you could have a business that you could virtually walk away from and just have it generate a revenue. And there have been people within Keller Williams that have done that. They've come in as a brand new agent, and they've built what we call, if you start reading the red book, Gary Keller talks about seventh level. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. The seventh level is the pinnacle of a real estate business, where you virtually now you've seventh level, you've hired a general manager that manages it. So you stepped out of the day-to-day operations. You're not doing anything about the business, and then you're looking for other opportunities. Doesn't mean you have to all be seventh level here. You could be still just a single agent if you want to be, and you want to make a couple $100,000 a year, and you're happy with that, and you got a great database, and you're happy with that. Whatever that is, we're here to support you with that. But no, your first 5 years in learning curve, if you can see, that's your learning curve. It's going to be like that for 5 years. And then maybe on the 6th year, it'll go like that. And I use that as a visual to let you know you're going to always be learning in this business. There's no, as Bernardo would say, a checklist or a spreadsheet to say, if this, do that, because it would go in 1,000 different directions. And so you've got to be willing to go with the flow and accept the good with the bad. This is the real estate roller coaster. You're going to have extreme highs and extreme lows. When you're on a high, enjoy that high, because that means you've got plenty of business, you're closing deals, and then you'll have months where you'll have dry spell. When I shared my personal journey, when I first got in the business, I had 3 listings and 3 sales right away. And each sale was $800,000 plus. So my checks were about $30,000 to $40,000 each. And I'm like, damn, this business is fun. It's easy. I'm doing really well. And then I had 6 months of a dry spell. It was awful, because then I realized, oh, I dried up my original database, and I need to go out and learn how to really lead generate and build a database. And then I did a for sale by owner program, because this was earlier in the days where the internet wasn't as proliferate as it is right now. So I did a for sale by owner program where I helped them market, and then eventually they listed with me. So there's lots of ways, and we'll cover some other unique ways to do the business based upon your disc as well today. So Melissa, you said you did the disc. Okay. And did anybody else take the disc? Okay. Aaron and Bernardo. Okay.
Taking it a long time ago, but I forgot what I was.
Okay. Well, we'll go through that today, and we'll see if what I think you guys are is what you be assessed at. And it's an assessment. It's not a test. It's an assessment. No answer is right or wrong, because everybody has a different brain, and that's okay. All right. So I'm going to share with you command, because the next thing we're going to talk about is now for the elements of a really good business plan. And I want to cover this material right now so that you have an understanding about when you build out your business plans. I want you to understand things about it. And with your coach, you'll probably set this up, but there's the goal setting that is available within command to figure out, okay, great, here's my goal. Now, how do I get there? And I'm giving you a 2021 example. And if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, can everybody see that very well? Okay. So on the right-hand side of the screen, your goal is 2021. I wanted to put an annual profit goal, and this is after taxes and expenses and this is just an example. Yours could be different, but it's $150,000. And for expenses, we ran our expenses at about I had the formula set up for a brand new agent. Let me just make sure. I think I did it at 12.5%. Um, 15%. So your expenses, again, you're running a business, should run about 15% of what you are making. So when we talk about budgeting, we're going to look at spending no more than 50% of what we bring in. So when you get your first check, remember 15% of it goes to pay your expenses. And then you've got to account for taxes. So you got to put 30% of it away for taxes. And your coach will work with you on this. Don't think you're going to always live in the net. The net meaning what is it? Because you're going to get a gross check, but then you got taxes and expenses and business operation to pay for. So remember that. And then your cost of sales, the expenses is anything you spend, like gas for your car and papers and your MLS dues. The cost of sales is what it costs you to get that actual sale. And so in this term, it's going to be something like your broker split that you have in there, and maybe your coaching fee. So we cap that for a brand new agent at $42,000 based upon $150,000 net. So it's going to cost $42,000 in broker fees, coaching fees, transaction coordinator fees, referral fees. Maybe you got a referral that you pay out to another agent. We've kind of ballparked that number. And we did this business makeup at 50% listings and 50% buyers. In other words, we'll do half and half. And then the average commission per unit, we track this with brand new agents that are building their business kind of from scratch. From a listing perspective, they're making $10,000 gross. That's gross GCI. And from a buy side, they make more money on the buy side, $12,500. However, it looks better to work with buyers, but remember, buyers take 5 times the amount of energy than a listing. So the ratio of listings to buyers for every 5 listings you have is equal to the energy and effort you put into one buyer. Let me repeat that. For every 5 listings you have is equal to the effort you put into one buyer. So what am I saying there?
Get listings.
Get listings, exactly. Because buyers take more energy. You go out and get a listing, and you got everybody else in the MLS helping you sell that listing. But if you got a buyer, you got to take them to multiple houses and fight tooth and nail for every sale that's out there. Now, this is really what I wanted to show you, is what we call the conversion rates. And this is tracked nationally with Keller Williams. When you look at your real estate business, I want you to look at it as a funnel. And that funnel, again, starts with the daily 10-4. You're putting people into a database, and not all people in the database are equal, and not all buyers and sellers are equal. But you'll have what's called conversion rates. So it starts with the lead in your book. You'll see in the materials, I think it's on page 9, it said leads to appointments to agreements to contracts to closings. That's what it says in your book. Now, in Command, it goes from leads to contacts, to appointments set, to appointments kept, because remember, not every appointment's going to be kept. Some are going to fall off. To agreements, that's where you get a listing agreement or a buyer agreement or a purchase agreement. And then under contract or pending, in other words, you get somebody under contract. And then closed units, that's your payday. So that's what it looks like in Command now. So when you see the visual in your book, it's going to be different than what I'm going through in Command today. Just take note of that. And remember, for every sale you have, every contract you get into escrow, you got to count on 10% of them falling out. Not every escrow will close. So if you look over here on the the left-hand side, we go down leads, contacts, appointments set, kept, agreements, under contract, closed units. Now, we can track nationally, and this is auto-populating on the right-hand side. You'll look, leads to contacts. So you're going to hear Stevens, probably in scripts, call it a contact, but in Command, we call it a lead. So I want you to think of a lead as your big funnel, So if you're doing an email campaign or a social media campaign or a Facebook Live campaign or a Facebook Live introduction or a Facebook Live virtual open house, those are all the leads, all the eyeballs that go on that. Because when you see this number, I don't want you to get freaked out. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've actually had a two-way conversation with them. The contact comes into when you actually had a two-way conversation. So the leads to contact is 5%. So when you see the number, you're kind of freak out when I get to that. So that's why I'm warning you. And then the contacts to appointment set is at 5%. So in other words, every two-way contact you have with someone that you have a conversation about real estate, you'll convert about 5% of them to an appointment. And then every appointment you set, 75% will be kept. You'll lose a quarter of them. And then for every appointment you have, 3/4 of them will agree to work with you. And then with every people that work with you, you'll get 3/4 of them into escrow. And then the under contract or pending to close units, you'll close about 75% of them. Again, it goes 3/4, 3/4, 3/4, 3/4. So if we save and continue that with an annual profit goal, the GCI on that to take home 150,000 before taxes, I'd have to gross 214,500 based upon my GCI of listings at $10,000 and 12,500 for buyers, and I'm going to do half my business listings, half buyers. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like in Command. So go to the left-hand side of the page where it says leads. What is that number?
24,406.
Right. Does that freak you guys out?
Oh yeah.
But what does it really mean? What does that number really mean when I explained what it talks about?
Names and numbers.
Or eyeballs on your business. Meaning, if you're running a Facebook ad lead campaign, or if you're running a virtual open house, it's basically eyeballs. So you can hit a lot of people. 24,000 to hit a general population, different than what you've done in the past, Aaron. Because I've heard you talk about this business is different. In the past, I would market and advertise, and people would call me. You've got to get that mindset out of your head right now, because they're not going to pick up and this was my mindset too, because I came from a different business where we had locations all over San Diego County, and we would do marketing and advertising, and people would walk in our door. They are not walking in your door, okay? Get that out of your head right now, and you'll do well. So when you look at that, if I need to get about 24,000 eyeballs on my business, and I convert 5% of them, I really only need to speak with 1,220 over the course of the year. Okay. What is 1,220 divided by 12? 100. Okay. And then what is 100 divided by, let's say you work 50 weeks out of the year. What is 100 divided by 50?
2.
Yeah. So what does that say?
From each 100, you get 2.
Okay. What else is it saying? So 50 weeks out of the year, and I need to speak to 100 of them out of those 50 weeks. I'm sorry, there's 1,220 people I need to speak to. There's 50 weeks in a year. So 1,220 divided by 50 equals
Approximately 25.
about 25. So I really need to only have like 25 connections a week. Now remember, this is on a $214,000 gross commission income, right? If I knew nobody. So if you cut that in half and say I only want to make 100,000, then it's only 12. Then I really only need to have 12 kind of interactions. And you're not going to have a full-on conversation every day, every week. You just need 12 interactions. So 12 interactions meaning somebody's reached out and they've asked a question on a listing I put on my Facebook campaign, or somebody asked a question on my virtual open house in my Facebook live feed. The numbers become really simple because then you break it down. You only need 61 appointments. Well, after 50 weeks out of the year, if you're working 50 weeks, that's not even quite, a little bit more than one appointment a week. 10 weeks out of the year, you have to have 2. And you have 45 appointments, 34 agreements, you put 25 under contract, and you close 20 units. If you close 20 units, you're the top agent in my market center. This is how you break everything down and go, you figure out what the end goal is and figure out, okay, what do I need to do each and every week to keep on track to that? So when you work with your coach on that, figure out, well, maybe your goal is just to make 40,000 your first year. It's not talking to a lot of people. 40,000, if you close 4 buyer sales or 4 listings, you'll make it. You just have to figure out, well, how many people do I need to speak to each week that want to sell their home?
The way I'm translating it to be more friendlier is if I want to make a third of that, say 50 net in profit, rather than making 25 connections a week, I'd make a third of that. So let's say about 8 connections a week. That's 1 to 2 a day.
Yep. If I only need to speak to one person a day, and that's, you break it down to the ridiculous, and it really becomes kind of easier to look at and be palatable. And then command helps you keep it all. But just remember this funnel, and don't be afraid of this big number right there at all. That's just eyeballs on your business. And by all means, don't forget to pay your taxes, because that's where agents get into trouble, especially when the tax man cometh. All right. Gary Keller also talks about what he says in the Red Book. He talks about the MREA energy plan. So who's started reading the Red Book? Okay, what are you getting out of it?
I'm like halfway through it, and it's just really breaking down all these models. I think it's, I don't know, it's very motivating. Just to, I don't know, it's kind of like big picture for me. It's like, do you want to be a millionaire? And then that kind of is the goal. So I think if you take it smaller scale, it's motivating to know what you need to do to be successful.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I agree with what she said, just because I kind of dug into it big time like a little while ago. Someone handed me that book a couple of years ago. And I sort of, chewed at it a little bit. And then lately I've been digging back into it. I think it's more of a motivational for me right now that it can be done. Just break it down. And the other book that I'm reading by Gary Keller is The One Thing. And that book is really helping me right now with just starting in the real estate business, just to keep focus on that one thing every day that I want to accomplish. And then kind of the other things will fall into place around it. And it doesn't become so overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. That's the premise of the one thing, is how do you get success in your life, is most people will attempt to do many things and they don't have a focus on that one thing that will get them where they want to be. Like if you wanted to be the best actor in the world, you would focus on being the best actor by taking acting classes and going on auditions. That's it. And then that will refine your craft. If you want to be a real estate agent, you want to focus on the lead gen, because that's going to bring the business in that will allow you to make money. And that's kind of what he talks about in there, is focusing on that. When Gary wrote the MREA, I'll give you a little history on it. And that's how I found Keller Williams when I first started the journey here. When I was disillusioned with the industry in 2005, 2006, because I wasn't seeing what I wanted to see in it. The lady there was a good friend that I worked with. We started the business together. And we would go out and we'd lead generate together. We'd do open houses together. We'd door knock together. We were just kind of like buds. And we're still buds today. We met actually through the real estate office. That's how we became buds. We would script practice together. And I came from a company that didn't have the training education that we had, but someone told us we needed to do scripts. We're like, okay. So we practice scripts every day. We get on a phone call with a script master and practice. Well, somewhere along the journey, I went and teamed up with a developer and sold a couple high rises downtown. And she went off on her own and she joined this company called Keller Williams. And at that time, it was called Keller Who, because it wasn't as big as it is now. And I called her and I said, Tammy, her name is Tammy. I said, I'm thinking of getting out of the business. I don't see what I like. I'm not sure if I really want to stay in it. I'm just challenged with it. And she had joined Keller Williams about 6 months before. She's like, and before that, she gave me the MREA book. And I put it in my bookshelf. I'm like, okay, another real estate book. Because I didn't equate to the title, Millionaire Real Estate Agent. But see, with me, it's never been about the money. Money's important. It's integral. But I was more about the doing it for the humanity part, and it was never about money. I wasn't gonna be cutthroat to steal a deal or whatever. And she said, well, go pull the book out and read it. And she invited me to that course called Quantum Leap. And Quantum Leap is about what we'll talk about, the MREA energy plan in a few minutes. But it's about having all the areas of your life in balance. And if you don't have it in balance, it's like the wheel of life. If one area is out of balance, everything else will be out of balance. And I read the first 121 pages, and that is the fifth part of the book that no one really talks about. That's the mindset model. And that's what the whole 121 pages is about, the very first. It's about the mindset model. And then the rest of the book is when Gary went out and wrote the book, he went out to 300 of the top real estate agents across the industry, multiple companies, and said, what do you do? How do you do it? And why do you do it? So they just compiled research and data. Again, it's all about the data. And he came back in and they all extrapolated it, him and the authors, and they put it in all those models, the lead gen model, the budget model, the organizational model, and the economic model. And that's the meat of the book. And from a business book, that book can also help you in real estate, but it could be like any other business that you want to open up. You need to understand the economics, the budget, how to bring business in, the lead gen, and then organizational. The most important part is no one succeeds alone. And if you're going to build $1 million business, you're going to have to have people in positions that will help you get there. So your people you work with or people that work for you. And when I went to that Quantum Leap, and it was a 2-day class, It was, okay, this is the company I want to join. And that's to me what Keller Williams is all about. Keller Williams is not a real estate company. We're a self-development, self-improvement, life-enhancing company disguised as a real estate company. The relationships fostered at this company are like no relationships I've had in a business setting in my entire life. I can truly say that Ashley and I, who would, you know, when she was a team leader and I was a productivity coach, we're like brother and sister. And then all this leadership, Stephen and Ash and Nancy and I'm drawing blanks. Everybody, um, and Drew and Eve, everybody that's on a leadership team, we are connected like a family, like we've never been before. And if there's anything I want you to get out of what I'm talking about right now is I want you to understand you won't get what we have at Keller Williams at any other company here in San Diego because no other company is like us. The relationships you will build will be lifelong lasting relationships that are very important, whether it's in this business or down the road in another business. So always remember that. That's what I want you to get. And we'll talk about how that my Keller Williams has enhanced my life in that area. So in the MREA energy plan Gary talks about, there's 5 key areas of your life. Your spiritual, which is whether it's a God or a spirit or a higher power. And then a physical, exercise and eat right. Your emotional, where you need to hug, kiss, and laugh more. And by the way, we do a lot of laughing here at this company. And then your mental, where you plan and calendar stuff. In other words, you have stuff organized. And then your business. In your business, the primary thing in real estate business is lead generating. You've got to somehow make peace with that. The lead gen model is the one thing that the agents want to spend least time on. So if you're not doing it, don't feel like you're the only person in the world. Trust me. Many other people in the company don't like lead generating. The top agents in the business will tell you they don't like lead generating.
I feel like that's almost comparable to those of us who run out there and say running sucks, but we still run all the time.
Yeah. I take it you jog daily.
If not daily, I mean, people consider me a runner, like 6 miles a day. But I think those who run, you know, marathons a couple of times a week, you know, and that's a breeze for them. I just do it because I need a light jog.
I have attempted to jog my entire life, and I took a jogging class in college. And when the pandemic, and I just, for some reason, jogging is not my jam. Maybe because I'm a bigger guy, and when I'm hitting the road, more of the ground is shaking. Even the pandemic, when all the gyms were shut down, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take up jogging. Yeah, didn't quite work.
I see that. In terms of the comparison, like there are those of us out there that will still go to those great lengths, but it's not like it becomes any more enjoyable or
No,
easier. But that's besides the point. Like we
I
sit.
wake up every day at 4:30 to go to my boot camp class. Do I like getting up at 4:30? No, but I do it, and I go and do a boot camp class, and I'm religious. I'm there every day, except for Sunday. Sunday's my day off. But I'm there, and my gym can count on me being in the door. And if I'm not there, they're always worried where. And I have another nickname. I will not share that with you guys here, but I have another nickname there. And if I'm not there, they're all wondering or they're texting, "Where are you?" Because I've set that tone with working out, and I want to have all 5 areas of my life in balance. Okay. It's important. When I arrived at Keller Williams, there were some areas that were way out of balance. And through Keller Williams and all the teachings, it's helped me get back in balance. Okay.
I think I see so much more clearly now, from the combination of team meetings, the scripts, to the Ignite session, and the way, at least in Coach Carl's NIO community,
Mhm.
People talk to each other. To your point, Broker Bob, when I was shopping around for brokerages, KW Metro had an eminence about it. Everyone would talk about the community and the culture, which is kind of esoteric from the outside in, when especially when a lot of people are touting that. And now I think I can see a lot more clearly what is specific about this office.
Mhm.
I wonder how, in my long term, as I pull more people into the field, um, how I'll be purposeful and effective in communicating what you said. Like, this is not just about your business or your work. There is a community here, and you'll find everyone role modeling and supporting you and finding those ultimate balances in your life.
Yeah. And if you decide to run a 5K with your jogging, we'll be there. I'll be there on the sidelines waving you on, but I will never be jogging. You can count on that. But I bring that point up. I was like, yeah, we'll show up if you've got some major event that you're doing. We want to go and see it. We're, like we said, we're a family, and it is hard on the outside looking in. Oh, we're so great. And even in our virtual world where this is what we're getting right now, because of during COVID. Um, I think we've nailed it as well as we can with the virtual world. And we just slid right into it and kept it going that way. So somebody's putting stuff in the chat bar, Melissa D.
Melissa's posting her athletic prowess.
No, I used to be a personal trainer, and I'm not a runner. So trust me, I know a lot of different workouts. And I am not that young anymore. So there's a lot of different things you can do for really, and I don't have the time. So I'm the person of 30-minute kick my butt workouts, and of course hiking. Love hiking, getting out in nature and doing that. But yeah, if anyone ever wants any tips, let me know. You guys got my number by now.
So Melissa, I want you to change your language and say, I'm not that young. Just say I have lots of experience.
I do. Yeah.
Rocker
Too
Bob,
much.
my grandpa was 112 when he passed away. So if somebody say
Wow.
I'm not
Oh.
young, if I'm not young, I'm teenager compared with my grandpa.
Wow. What do you attribute? Where did he live, and what do you
He
attribute?
he was a farmer, and my grandma was 98, and he was getting up with my grandma at 5 in the morning, and they were going doing farming and stuff, and then they were sleeping by 6, 7. They had their dinner sleeping. So, and I remember I was 8 years old when they passed away, but they never slept separate. Always they were together. They were doing everything together. And BlackBerry and Apple back old time was not a phone, was a fruit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They lived
Just
so
all the healthy green eating.
in health. Everything was, we say organic, but over there
Yeah.
was just natural. Yeah.
Did he farm all the way up to 112?
No, when I remember when he was sitting his bed, he was carving, wood and making like, wooden spoon and those stuff, just giving away to other people. But he never stopped working. He never.
Mm-hmm.
Always worked and eating very light, healthy, and from the farm. But and they told me that my dad told me that his brother died, but because back old time was very expensive to get like a birth certificate, they used his brother's birth certificate. So he must be much older than what I'm thinking. But as I know, was 112. Yeah.
Wow.
So we are. I don't think we are old. I say myself sometimes too, but
Well, I have a goal of 100. And I believe longevity is due to purpose.
Yeah.
And,
Definitely.
if we have a good purpose, we can continue on. I believe retirement is a myth that if you retire, I see people die after retirement because they have no purpose.
Right.
So figure out what your purpose is. Okay.
Can I ask a question about this in relation to the work?
Yeah.
What would you say? You said you've seen 1,500 people come into the office, and I know that that there's a what would we say, like a low retention rate? A lot of people don't make it through the field after like about a year and a half. Is there, what would you say is the average or median age or background perhaps of folks who go into the field?
I've seen everything.
Uh,
Yeah, there's not one that shows that you can be successful. We'll talk about that with the disc on the second half, because I'm going to run through the disc and I'm going to show you how, and I've modified it as best as I can in a virtual world. Now, I've kept some of the stuff original, but if it looks original, it's like, okay, now how do I to a virtual form? But I don't share numbers that says, the industry average is 85% of the people that start will be out within 18 months. Probably what it is. We have much better success ratio at our office because we have great training, great support, great coaches. And so we have about 50 to 70% stay in the business. And then the other 30%, whatever, they get in, they realize it's not for me. It's not what I want to do. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you guys are all starting as a brand new agent in this business. On the outside looking in, like you said, Bernardo, you looked at us differently as an office. It was very esoteric because you didn't quite see the family stuff. Now that you're in, you're seeing it. Same thing as you guys coming into the real estate business. You think, oh, glamorous, make all this money. I love homes. I love people. These are the top 4 reasons. I love homes. I love people. I want to make a lot of money. I want to be my own boss. Those are the 4 reasons people get into real estate. And then they get into real estate and then they realize, well, you mean I have to go find people to buy and sell with? So darn, I got to do that. And then the money doesn't show up. And then after a while, a house just becomes a house because it becomes a commodity. It's what it is. It's a commodity. You might like homes and touring homes, but eventually you're like, a home's a home, a home. And then on top of that, if you're a people person, after about 6 months, you're probably not. Because you realize people are people. I like that one. You're people. So your myths about what a real estate agent and being a real estate agent has changed once you're in the business. And then for those that self-select out, there's no problem with that. Their true calling might be something else. This is what it is. My true calling was to truly help people be better versions of themselves, which is why I navigated, for some reason, every company I ended up in my previous company to this company. I always rise up to a leadership role. And half the times I'm kicking myself. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? But I end up in a leadership role. And leadership always rises to the top for some reason. Okay, let's review this really quick, and I'm gonna give you a 5-minute break. And your coaches are going to work with you on this, but we call it the business planning. When I talked about the business plan, we set the overall goal of how many people we want to reach every year in command. And now how do we get to it? And in Keller Williams, we have 2 things we use, and one's called a 411, and it stands for 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. 411, 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. So the 1 year is everything we know we want to achieve in a year. And then the 1 month is what do we need to do each and every month to attain that annual goal. And then the 4 weeks is what do we do weekly to achieve the annual goal. So we break it down like that. So you remember where I broke down, we needed to see, what was it? 24,000. What was the number?
Which number are you referring to?
24,000. We need to have 24,000 leads, right? That was the annual goal. So when we go create our plans, we break the annual goal down to a monthly and down to a weekly with the 411. The other tool we use is called a 135, which I have on the screen, or GPS. So a GPS is like a navigation system in your car, right? You plug in the navigation on Apple Maps or Google Maps, you tell it where you want to go, and then all of a sudden it'll say turn left at 8th Avenue, turn right on 10th Avenue, right? That's the navigation. And if you get off track, what does she say?
Make a U-turn.
Make a U-turn, recalculating route. That's what our 411 and 135 does. It keeps you on track to reaching your overall goal. So the GPS is a format I really like using because it sets the overall, what we call the overall goal, that's the G, and the P is the priorities. In other words, what are we going to focus on? And then the S is the strategies. So in other words, that's the activities. That's the weekly activities. So for this one, I kind of mimicked 24 sales, 8 listings, 16 buyers in this example. Okay. Or I could change it to 12 and 12. And then the priorities, I'm going to break it down into, so I put a few examples in here, but you're only going to focus on 3. And I had database, I had virtual open houses, I had a social media platform, and then I had an example for a geographic farm, okay? So let's go to the priorities. The priority is what what are the 3 areas you're going to focus on? So in other words, you're going to exclude all others. You're not going to go after for sale by owners. You're not going to go after expireds. You can if you want to within these strategies. I always have every agent work on 2 for sure priorities, and it's their database. And earlier on, when we can do open houses, it would be virtual open houses, or I mean, open houses. Now, I probably will change to be the social media platform the next strategy priority that everybody should focus on. But then let me break down within the database. So then I've made it really simple. The strategy is grow my database to 100, then 250, then 500 as soon as possible by consistently adding 15 new contacts per week into command. That's the actual physical work you do. Place all new contacts in a smart plan in command. Call, text, direct message in Facebook or Instagram 10 people daily with my database 5 days a week and have a meaningful conversation about real estate. And you had Joe Acosta teach a class, right? The listing class. Did he talk about what he does with Instagram?
I don't remember.
I remember him talking about that.
Okay. So what Joe does, that's a lead gen tool for him. He actually is, when he posts stuff in Instagram, if it's real estate related, and he sees people like it, or he'll start doing a direct message back and forth to the people that like it, because they're in his sphere of influence. So the other one is have lunch or coffee with what I call top 25 people in your database. That's another way to, you really want to create a sense of community. So pick people, what I call the top 25. These are people that have a center of influence, or are connected, or just know a lot of people, and develop a relationship with them. And then grow the database by promoting my virtual open house tours on a social media platform. So that's an example of what about the strategies are for a priority with your overall goal. So when you work your business plan with your coach, I'm just running through this with you a little bit. That's how you're going to build it. And you're going to chunk it down. First, you're going to chunk it up. What do I want to make? And then chunk it down. What do I need to do each and every week? And then what do I need to focus on in order to achieve that goal? Now I'm giving you a very abbreviated version of a business planning session, but that's it in a nutshell. Now your coaches will go more in depth, and then we'll actually go more in depth where we do business planning classes to help you really refine that. And know your business plan is a working document. It will always change based upon what you see as working and not working. That's why you have a coach. And by the way, here's my pitch for having a coach. No one succeeds alone in this business. And if you think you are, you're crazy. Everybody has a coach. How Gary Keller got to be the biggest real estate company in the world is because he hired a coach at his very early on stage, and he spent $250,000 for this coach that helped Gary Keller guide his company to where it is today. So we're big on coaching in this company.
Actually, 3 people on here are on my same team with Coach K.
Good.
So Aida and Bernardo and I are on Carl's, and I know Madison, you're on Alicia's team, and Aaron's with Clarissa. So all of us are in the coaching program.
Great. But here's what I want you to hear. When you graduate from my fabulous launch coaches, you need to go into growth coaching, because you've got to have someone guide you then moving forward. You can't do it by yourself. And I see it happen all the time. People get out of the first 3 deals. Oh, I'm done with my coaching program. And then launch. I don't need to do it anymore. And then they go off on their own. And then they do jack for 6 months. And they try and figure it out. And then either they change brokerages, still flounder, or get out of the business. You've got to always have a coach. I have a coach. Every coach in my coaching staff has a coach. Because left to our own devices, we as humans won't do what we're supposed to do. That said, let's take a 5-minute break. I'll be back at 11:13. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Day 13. So before we get into the disc, I'll just share a little bit about a personal journey and why it's important. When you look at the first 121 pages of the MREA, it talks about mindset. And the mindset is the key to success in this business, as well as probably anything in life, and taking your power back. In 2014, and prior to 2014 with Keller Williams, I mean, I really grew and flourished with Keller Williams. What I came in with in this company is not where I am today, and I'm still growing and learning. And when I share this journey, I only share about how I am internally. But when I came to Keller Williams, I had a lot of baggage still that I was carrying. And we'll talk a little bit about baggage and how to loosen that baggage up. But in 2014, I started having these headaches, and I couldn't figure out why these headaches were coming. And they would come and go. They wouldn't stay there. They weren't like intense headaches. And I was on a camping trip with my family, and the headaches got worse. They were not going away. And I was way up in the mountains in Northern California, Southern Oregon. And we were having this family reunion. And the day of our big family reunion, where we had a big barbecue, I wasn't feeling, I mean, the headache just got so bad and so intense. And women here can probably relate, because when men are sick, they don't pay attention to it, and we don't listen to our bodies, but women actually listen to their bodies. Men think they can suffer through anything. My sister actually said to me, "You're not looking too good. I think we need to take you to the hospital." Now here we are out in somewhere outside of Ashland, Oregon. So we went to this little place, this little it wasn't a full-on hospital. It was just the local Ashland hospital. And they did everything. They ran tests. They did I think it was meningitis. They did a spinal tap, and they did a CT scan. And once they did, oh, you lived in Ashland most of 2017. Great. I grew up in Wairika, which is just south of that in the Oregon border. So were you part of Shakespearean Festival up there, Bernardo?
Yeah, I did a residency there.
Oh, how fun. That's such a beautiful area.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, they did the CT scan, and they discovered on the left side of my brain there was a blood clot. And so the last thing I remember was, we have to transfer you to Medford, to a bigger hospital, and they have to do emergency brain surgery. That's the last thing I remember. And I woke up in the hospital about 2 or 3 days later in the ICU with cords coming out of my head and catheters inserted and tubes going all over the place. And I was in that ICU for about a week, and what they had to do was called a craniotomy. They had to actually take the left side of my brain skull off to get the blood to release from the brain. And what they discovered in there was 2 actually brain bleeds. There was the one that I was currently having, and the one that was there all year, and it actually dried. And then that's why the headaches were persistent for a year. I had some anomaly where I had a second bleed, that's why I was getting the headaches were getting worse. So it was 2 bleeds. So they didn't even know if I was going to live or die. And during that time, I had to learn how to walk, I had to learn how to talk. I was having seizures, and I was off from work actually for about a year. And that's when I stepped back from the coaching program, because at that point, I was the only coach at the Market Center, and I had Clarissa with me. She was kind of supporting and helping me. And by the way, Clarissa's a godsend. Because I was coaching about 80 to 100 of you guys at one time, and it was just me. Yeah, I had a lot on my plate. And when you have a lot of your plate and you're stressed out, the body is going to naturally react. And Aaron, when you shared your health journey, your body's naturally reacting to the stressors in your life. There's that mind body connection that happens when our bodies will say, you know what? You can't see that, but you guys can see that. The body goes, F you, if you're not going to pay attention to me, I'm going to make you pay attention to me. And that's what was happening. And it did. And I came back and I did it would be basically recovery. I had to go and I had to learn how to remember stuff again. And I guess my speech was slurred, although when you have a brain injury, you can't hear it, but others could. I had to learn how to talk. I had to, in the speech therapy, in addition to the cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as the memory. The memory was the hardest because if you've never had a brain injury and you had to go do memory tests, the memory test would cause so much headaches on my brain that I literally came back there more exhausted than I did as if I did physical activity, because brain work is 10 times more exhausting than mental work, physical work, just FYI. That's why when you guys sit through these classes, this is brain work. You're probably going to be more tired with this brain work because your brain is working hard to process the information. So when I came back and I started, going through my therapy and I was away from the office, I came back in and I wanted to uncover what led to the brain bleed, but I really wanted to cover what did I allow in my life to get to that point where I was completely out of balance. And I went on a journey of just going to classes. I went to a class called Landmark, which is a kind of a self-development class, and it's a company. And then I got my what's called NLP, which is Neuro Linguistic Programming, a master practitioner. It was a series of classes that I sat through along with mental emotional release, what we harbor in our thoughts and our mind to release everything, and then hypnotherapy. So I'm certified to do that as well too. And through that journey, what I discovered was I was able to put all the pieces in my life, and these were intense classes. They were really intense. And through that class, one of these days, it was like a light bulb went off. And I saw it. I saw all the shame, guilt, fear that I carried with me in my life. One about my sexuality, one about my alcoholism in my family, that all my dad and my grandfathers died of it. One about just carrying shame about a divorced family, all that shit that went through in your life. When we have our personal journey, we carry that forward. And somehow I didn't release it, but my body was building up on it. And my body knew it was there, and I was not processing it. And once I went through that, I looked at it that I'm not processing it, but yet I'm deflecting everything in my world that is wrong, and I'm attempting to put the blame on other people. And what I realized was I'm completely responsible for my path and my journey. I set the tone. And once I saw that, is like I'm responsible for where I am in my life. I cannot blame anybody. That helped me tremendously understand and take my own personal power back. Meaning, no one can blame us if we don't have a job, or we don't have money in the bank, or we don't have a good relationship with our family, or we lost a car because we didn't make the payments, or we lost a house, or we lost a business. Because I was carrying all that with me up until the body has a natural mechanism to put into place to actually help you realize that I'm either going to do this to you and you get yourself fixed or realize this, or it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So the brain bleed and the craniotomy and all that was the best gift that I had in my life. And I truly believe anybody that goes through a physical crisis has a mental crisis going on underneath that's not being dealt with. That's my belief. You went like that, Bernardo. What's that?
That's ASL for yes.
Yes. Okay, got it. So yeah, so I share this with you not to say, oh, poor Robert went through this. No, I share this with you because you're all younger than me to some respect, or maybe you haven't had. If you're having a health crisis, I want you to recognize that health crisis is there because there's something mental in your life that needs to be dealt with. And that's why Gary Keller, the first 121 pages of MREA says, get real, get right. Get your head set. Get your head on right first. Because if you don't get your head on right first, you're not going to succeed in this business. And it doesn't matter if you stay with Keller Williams or go do another thing, another business or another company or another type of industry. Your luggage is going to be carried with you. So physically think of yourself, and this is how I envisioned it. When I got to that point on my journey, my backpack that I was carrying all through my life, you keep putting stuff in and putting stuff in. In NLP, what they call that your subconscious. Your conscious is what you're aware of right now. Your subconscious is all your thoughts and experiences that you layer each and everything on that subconscious of all your experiences in your world, and you just keep it there and you store it. And it gets stored and it gets stored and it gets stored. It's like putting something in a backpack. The backpack got so heavy, I couldn't continue to carry it anymore from airport to airport or destination to destination. I unloaded some of that stuff from that backpack and I kept it. You know what? I don't need this shit anymore. Just leave it there. Has anybody else been through something like that, or is it just me?
You know, Robert, since I'm, I wrote 2 books, I'm still writing my life book. I just wanted to talk to you. You didn't make an appointment with me, by the way. Anyway, just want to let you know, I can share a little bit, but before going, before I go out this year, out of country, like I can say after I got my license, within 1 month, there was 2 incidents. Within, I don't know, 1 second happening or something like that, just right front of me. There was a car. One of them was on the news. I passed that fashion mall and I was coming and I saw the guys flagging me in the middle of the night. 2 car was flipped on the side. The guy flagging me just to, how fast here in California you guys are driving.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy flagging that middle of the night in that road that is so, everybody's speeding, to not hit me or my car. And just 1 second, I just maneuver and I passed and I looked at the mirror when I passed. The car that was coming behind me was a truck, hit the guy and hit that car that was flipped. Mm-hmm. And in the news, I saw that, he got killed. The guy was trying to save himself and the car. Probably somebody was in the car or something like that. And then another one in just less than 1 month. I was going toward Tijuana, and the same things happen. The same image, same things happen. And if I was not looking at front of me, that many people they don't. Maybe I learned this in Chicago because everywhere there's the cameras. You have to be careful that you're gonna get ticket all the time. If I was not looking at front of me, I was not paying attention, I was the person who was going to kill that guy or hit the other car. Mm-hmm. So what I learned that this is, I'm telling you about the past, that one day, hopefully me and you, we're going to sit down. Sometimes I can't share everything with everybody, but you got similar experience, that I see I see my future is that big windshield in front of me, that I have to focus on that big windshield. And the baggage that you're talking about is that mirror, that little mirrors that is in the side. If we keep looking at those little mirrors, we're going to get distracted and we're going to have a big cracked windshield again. So we have to focus on that big windshield and look at front of us, not only we don't get hurt, we're not going to get anybody hurt, but sometimes we have to look at those little mirrors that it shows us past, not continuously looking at that. Just remind us that what we came through to, see the front of us. So it just was a big lesson to me that, always pay attention to your future, because if you don't, you're gonna have, that drag, or you may gonna die again. So it was a big lesson for me that carrying the big baggage with us is gonna, gonna destroy your spine. They're gonna bring you health problem, mental problem, and you have to just let it go. Just focus on that big windshield in front of you and continue going carefully.
The analogy that one of my best mentors ever used with me, that's why the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror, or the back window, always. And I'm also, you'll hear the phrase, everything happens for a reason. I believe everything happens with a lesson, for a lesson. And it's our job in our life to uncover what that lesson is. And I use this with coaches ad nauseum, and they get so mad at me because they'll call me, and whether it's, an agent in their coaching program or an agent on the other side of the transaction or something in their life, they'll always share. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you learning from this situation? Because this experience is allowing you to learn something. And if you don't learn from this experience, it's going to come in another form, in another person or another event. And of course, they hate me when I say that, because then they realize, oh, then I got to learn what this is all about. Everybody in our life is about learning something. Every interaction we have with somebody, whether it's good or bad, it is usually the bad that we have our best lessons. The head trauma was a bad injury, but it was the best lesson. And that's called, if we can reframe it to figure out what the reframe is on it, then we can move through that lesson. Otherwise, guess what? And this was building for me, Aaron, when it was coming up. It was building and building and building and building. There was some shit I hadn't taken care of in my past that I had to clean up. And once I cleaned up, then I was able to move forward. So it's important to look at the past and leave it there, but learn from it. Otherwise, it just keeps coming back. And that's what was happening to me. It kept coming back. Kept coming back, kept coming back. All right, so let's move into the final segment. That's my little thing. Thanks for listening. Thank you for sharing, Aaron, your stuff as well, too. Let's talk about the disc. You all took the disc.
I took it twice, and I think I got different results. Although the first time I took it was not the Tony Robbins one.
So do you want to share what you led with?
What do you mean exactly?
So in the disc, DISC, and I'll go over each type. So DISC, each behavior profile, there's one that ranked the highest. And then you can have one that ranks below it, or you can have nothing that ranks below it. What was the one that ranked the highest?
The first time, I think it was an I. Yesterday, I was an SC.
Okay. Was the S the highest?
I think the C was the higher one.
C was the highest? Okay, great. Melissa?
Oh, did you see me smiling? I too also ranked high. I've taken it a couple of times. The I is always the highest.
Okay.
C sometimes, S sometimes.
Okay.
As the second.
Okay. And Aida, did you say you didn't take it or take it or?
I didn't take it. I didn't know we needed to take it by today.
You didn't.
I thought it was going to be a separate class, but I've taken it a long time ago. I just don't remember. I want to say I think I was an I, but I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. And then Madison, did you take it?
Yeah, I was an I and a D.
ID. Okay. Great. And then Aaron, did you take it?
Yes, I did. I don't know, I mean, maybe but I feel like all of them
Yeah,
is
they all share
necessary,
some of the traits.
necessary.
Yeah, but you're dominant in either one or two. And I go much more in depth with this. Um, but the reason I want to share this with you, because I want you guys to understand, you've gotten different types of instructors. You all see that everybody does something a little differently. And that, to me, that's the key to success in this business, is realizing you don't have to be cookie cutter, and you can follow your own path in real estate. And then what I also come to understand as I become to master the disc and master NLP and the brain, on how the brain works, because we all have different behaviors, it's really important to, and I dropped in the chat box a PDF of this, so you can have this, is, and you'll get this in the class as well too, but let's break down each of the DISC, and that's an acronym for, they've just called it for years. I don't know if there's a reason for it, but they've labeled it. D as a dominant. So a D dominant is a person that's very direct, short, sweet, to the point. And when I give these descriptions, this is like a person that's off the chart D. This could be tempered with other characteristics. So dominant, short, sweet, to the point, fast paced, move, let's move. Okay. I is the influencer. I is the interpersonal. These are the people that are, by the way, the dominant people, they're not about people. They're about a task, getting things done. The I is the influencer. They're about people. They're the life of the party. They're typically the ones that are always late. They like to walk in a room and make an entrance. And I say this, these are off the chart. And when I describe them, there's no good or bad on how I'm describing them. I'm just giving you what you'll generally notice. I always notice with an I, they have a sparkle in their eyes when they smile. They're the ones that are really, like, people are just drawn to them when they come into a room. And then the steady, the S, these are the system people. These are typically the engineers. They are, I'm sorry, they're not, I'm sorry, the C's are the engineers. The S's are the steady. Think of the S as the sweet aunt that you always went to as a kid to talk about your troubles. And they'd give you really good advice, and you just felt like you wanted to talk to them. They're the ones, the I's are about people and the S's are about people, but the I's are about a lot of people. And the S's are about a small group of people. They don't have to have hundreds of friends, but they'll build really strong connections with a certain amount of people, like a close-knit community. And then the C, they're about tasks as well too, just like the D. So the tasks meaning checklists, spreadsheets, all that kind of stuff. Do it, I need to understand how to do it. They're typically the engineer type brain. Now here's a good thing. Every DISC profile makes it in real estate once they really understand their behavior profile and then do a program based upon that. So let's kind of go up to the dominant, and because dominant people really aren't about people, but this is a people business. And again, I've created this kind of like a COVID edition, but where it is in person, you got to figure out and trade it into figure out how to make it a virtual platform. Okay. But so a dominant person would be someone that want to create their own networking group, based around your own hobby. If you got a hobby, something like that. So you have a networking group and it's the same people you're talking to a lot. You'll do that with any behavior profile, but that's a dominant person, is like, they like people for what people can do for them, and they don't want to have to deal with a lot of people. Well, they might want to cold call. They're really good at cold calling. The dominant ones are. They love cold calling. They love cold calling FSBOs and expireds and withdrawals. Maybe set up a mailing program for them. Maybe they'll buy the book of a retiring agent. They'll use predictive analytics and spend money on websites like offers.com. And I'm breezing through this. It's also in the PDF. So Don't think that you won't have access to this. And then the influencer. Well, since these people are the life of the party, they got to go to their strengths. And their strengths are talking to people, going out and meeting people. And that's been the hardest thing for um, COVID, because influencers haven't been able to go out into the community. But what have influencers been able to capitalize more on in COVID?
Social media.
Yes, they got their social media accounts. They're posting their pictures. They're chatting up with people. That's why when I look at, like, for instance, Chris Spade, he's an ID. He's more I. Sometimes he's more D, but he loves social media because that's his platform, and he likes to brand himself as a media company. Social media, he gravitated to that like nothing because it's his stage. Influencers need a stage. So the best stage they have is social media, and it doesn't cost any money to do that. So they're going to do a lot of stuff live on Instagram, live on Facebook. They're going to be the natural networkers. Like, you're going to go out and just network with people in a pandemic. And then the S, the systematizers, the steady people. Well, because these people aren't about a lot of people, but they are about people, they'll probably just do something like a lot of referral type relationships. They'll get really close. They'll develop that top 25 people in their database, and they'll network with those people. They'll have lunch with them or coffees with them in an environment that's safe during COVID. They'll network with other agents. They'll network with out of area agents. They're just good at stuff like that. And they might even do stuff like lead generation websites as well too. But they need to focus on intimate gatherings to generate leads. That's the key with them. They're not going to be about big flash. They'll probably be on social media, but not as much. And if they are, they're more about smaller groups on social media. S's would be really good with Nextdoor.com. And we have a relationship with Nextdoor through Keller Williams, where you could target an area with your neighbors. And I'm not familiar with it, but I put a link, CKW or Nextdoor for details, in the PDF I sent you. Again, S's, intimate relationships with people with a large database themselves. And then the conscientious people, these are the methodical thinkers, the checklists. They'll be very good to set up systems for their lead gen, meaning host a series of home selling and investing and buying seminars. Maybe the high C's, I see high C's work with people that want to do 1031 exchanges or buy income property because they can talk numbers with investors. They'll do local meetups, but it will be the same type of stuff, like be an investment meetup. They're not warm and fuzzy typically, because remember the engineer brain? They're engineers. They're all about with staying between the lines. So they might be good at the best high C's are really good at developing market analytics and sharing that with their database. In other words, they'll take all the information from Ashley's class and they'll share it with their people, because then they can talk about the analytics. So they typically won't be good with open houses because they don't like people walking through the door. People, shall I say, annoy them. So here's the good thing, and it breaks down in percentages. The dominant people, this is overall about 12% of the population are dominant. 6% are influencers. 42% are the steady, the S's, and 40% are the C's, the conscientious. So what does that say?
I'm in the 6%, or almost everyone on this thing are in the influencer stage. You attract 6%. I don't know.
You'll work a lot with S's.
And C's.
Mhm.
So 82% of the population are SCs, which mean, and so the reason I bring this point up is because people look at salespeople as being high DIs because they have the drive and the interpersonal to go out and meet people. Okay. And we're in an industry where the DIs are revered. But I know a lot more SCs that have done multi-billion-dollar businesses in this industry. A matter of fact, our biggest team out of the South, he's an SC. I mean, they do like 5,000, or I don't know, they do 5,000 or 10,000 homes a year. And he was an SC because he was able to put systems in place that kept it all together. Gary Keller, the founder of our company, is a high D, high C. We call that, because remember it goes DISC, D high, C high. And so if you draw a curve, the I and S is low, and the C is high, and the D is high. That's what we call the millionaire curve. The millionaire curve, because they have the drive, the determination, and the ambition to go out and do it, and then the C, the ability to keep it all together. So that's how Gary played to his strengths. He had the drive and the put together, but he lacked the interpersonal skills, because the DCs would be a person, if they saw you at the grocery store, they'd go down a different aisle before they had to cross your path. And he admits to that too. So again, there's nothing wrong or right about it. It's just the behavior that we all exhibit, and that's what he understood. And it's your ability to be able to, as Alicia put in the chat box, you need to be able to adapt to those other behaviors. If you're an SC, softer person and very checklist type person, and you come across a D is typically going to be aloof. So you're going to have to figure out how to talk to that D. You bring out your C. A D short, sweet, to the point. If you're a high I trying to talk to a D, remember a D wants everything compact, short, sweet, to the point. And I is all over the board, because when I'm coaching an I, I've always got to rein them in and keep them on track. And that's where they'll have conflict, because the I will be annoyed that the D doesn't want to talk to them. And the D would be like, go away, I don't want to talk to you. Just take me to the house or get my home listed.
Now I understand why I'm writing like 10-line email for Robert, and then Robert just just write me one word.
I'm a high D. I lead with my D, and I'm multitasking all day long. And yeah, you got to remember your communication style. In my class, I give you more handouts. How do you communicate with a D, either in text or in emails? Like, you give me a long-winded email, I probably won't read it, or I'll just breeze through it, get the important stuff. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Remember, it's your communication style. So hopefully you'll come to the DISC class as well too, because you'll grow from that as well to learn how to deal with other DISC types, but more so, what are you like as a person? Because you've got to understand how your brain operates, and then set up a lead gen platform that works for what your behavior is like.
I know
Not
that
what you're told, but what you're like.
maybe this question is premature because we're going to have a designated session on this. So is it fair to assume that perhaps our profile changes depending on what setting we're in, or what job we're performing, or what team dynamics we're part of?
Good question. You pretty much are formed by the age of 18 to 21. And that's how you are for the remainder of your life. When you test, if you test differently and you get different results, what I have seen, some people have come in and tested, and they're midline, what we call 50% across the board. Well, that shows that they're in a change in their life and they don't quite know what they want to do or where they're going. And I'll see it occasionally. Brand new agents come in that we call midline throughout the whole thing because they're going into a business they're not quite sure of. And I have tested probably every year I go test, and I test the exact same thing within a percentage or 2 points, and it hasn't changed much. So if you're under stress, you might get different results. But you're pretty much the way you are by the age of 18 to 21.
Have you ever done the 16 personalities? That's based on the Carl Jung test. That's more like a personality test, but I actually did that a while ago for a leadership class I was taking, and I tried to fool that test like multiple times, and it didn't really matter. I might have off the percentages, and I probably took it it's like a 20-minute test, and you can't possibly remember. I think I even printed some of the questions and tried to remember them. It didn't matter. It's like my personality, maybe percentages would be a little bit different. But I feel like on this one, because I actually did take it a couple of times and try to cheat the answers, it didn't really matter. It was still higher in the I. And then the C would be pretty close and then down. And then one time, the S was really low, but that's just because it's only 12 questions. But it is kind of amazing when you get in depth into those personality, really looking into your personality, how much that really says about you. And you're right about the different times, because my percentages on the 16 personalities over the probably 15 years I've taken it off and on, it varies, but the same one doesn't change. But I'm sure you've taken that test before.
I haven't taken that one, but I took the one with Ashley, had a class last fall. It was a self-development class, and she does the Enneagram. So the Enneagram is a really good test to take.
Okay. I'll drop the 16 personalities link in the chat. I think it's a fun one for, not just fun, but it's a good one for people to take, just to because it gives you a little bit more, but it takes 20 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm. So Bernardo, you were going to say something?
At the Enneagram, I think it's the Myers-Briggs one, or is that a different one?
No, Enneagram's different than the Myers-Briggs. And the
Myers-Briggs is 16 personalities.
Yeah. When I say Keller Williams is more about personal development, that's what I've really, once I got introduced to the DISC, I'm like, oh, that's why I am the way I am, and my friend is the way he is. Yeah. And you really understand behavior when you understand the DISC is kind of like the basics of it, but then you go more in depth. But you can pick up, I teach you in the class how to figure out how someone is just by meeting them. Now in person, it's kind of hard, but a DISC, when they shake, it'll be like a firm, and we probably won't go back to handshakes ever again, who knows? But a DISC would be just a firm handshake, really quick and release. And I would be a hugger. They want to hug you. And S will be a hug, but it'll be like a really hug, not like it's a warm hug, but it's not very, it's not hard like an I. And a C doesn't want you to touch them. Stay away. Don't touch me. They won't even open up their arms. Now that's a generality of someone that's way off the chart. But that typically, and then you can picture a D. A D is short, sweet, to the point. So if you haven't figured out I'm a D when I'm teaching, boom, 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 boom. And then an I, with I'm a DI, I lead with my D. And I talks, high I will just talk and 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 talk. And then an S will talk, but they'll be very intimate with people, and they'll have intimate conversations. The I goes to the party, wants to make friends with everybody, doesn't believe the party starts until they get there, and wants to go talk to everybody. And the S will be in the corner talking to one person one-on-one. And then a C probably would be at the buffet bar, not talking to anybody. It's like, stay away from me. Now that's extreme. Now, and then, as you said, we all exhibit some of those behaviors individually too. Like I have S in me and I have C in me when I need to, but it's not my natural. Meaning we have natural and adapted. Natural is what we naturally are, and we don't have to think about it. Adapted is where we adapt in the environment, and it's not our natural, so it wears us out more. It doesn't come natural. So I've adapted my C, and Ashley and I were having this conversation last week. I've adapted my C because over the course of the years, I've been so disorganized. I've had to learn myself how to organize myself and keep myself organized. Otherwise, everything's in disarray. And I don't want to live in a world that's in disarray. So you adapt some of those behavior. All right. Any questions on the disc?
Yeah, I've wondered for a while since I took the 16 personalities one or Myers-Briggs. I think it can be kind of hard to take the tests when you're not honest with yourself about what your behaviors are, what your worldview is.
Mm-hmm.
Or perhaps even if you think you're being honest with yourself, it might not be the real thing. So how common or reliable would it be to have someone answer for you who was like either your partner or a close teammate?
What was your question again?
Basically, I see the questions and I'm like, well, I think that I'm addict, but I'm more aggressive than I think I am. I don't want to admit that I'm a dominant person. I want to be this, so I might be tempted to put that answer.
Yeah.
Or maybe I don't even realize that I'm much more dominant. And so like what I'm wondering is how helpful could it be to have someone else provide the answers for you and say, I've watched you closely because I'm married to you or I work with you and you are much more of a dominant person than you admit.
Try it and see what their perspective is versus what you end up seeing yourself as. I think that would be interesting, especially your spouse.
Yeah. Again, remember, it's their filter and their lens.
Yeah.
You know yourself better than anybody else. Yeah, I never was ever asked that question. That is interesting. But how someone perceives you compared to how you perceive yourself,
right.
It probably would end up with, if they really knew you, probably the same result. I kind of figured you were an SC because I knew early on you started talking checklists and flow, and you wouldn't get that from an I. That's for darn sure. But then I also thought you might have been a DC. So, because just the way you've interacted on the calls here, I can tell Melissa's an I.
I see that.
For sure.
I see. My C was actually it was above average.
Yeah, and so you've got some conflict there.
Mm-hmm.
You either adapted that C.
Oh, it's adapted.
Because an I and a C is in conflict because they're on the opposite side. I's and C's the hardest time with each other, and D's and S's have the hardest time with each other. If I've ever had someone hate me in all those 1,600 people, it's an S. Because a D will push, and an S does not want to be pushed. And a D will put their foot in the mouth, which I have many times in my life, because I want the best for people. So I have to, as a coach, I push. But an S will retreat and go back into that turtle shell so quick. And if you don't believe me, ask Clarissa. Because when she gets pissed at me, and we're good friends, she's like a little sister to me. But when she gets mad, she will turtle, and I will automatically see that shield go up, and I'm in trouble. So I skedaddle out of the room. It's funny to watch.
What about me, Broker Bob? What do you see my character?
Well, you have a shield over it. I can tell that. I do know that you are in a like every other person that comes in this business at a state where you're confused about this business and confused about where you are in your life. That doesn't mean you can't make through it. I think we all are though at any one point in our life.
So make me what? C, I, S.
What did you say you took it or didn't take it?
I did, yes.
And what did you rank as?
I don't know. I was asking what you see me. C, S, I, D.
Well, I see you as an S. There's some S in there and there's some C. So again, 82% of the world is SCs. So the probability of you being able to relate to somebody is pretty big. I look at someone like Sal. He's a high D, right? He's our top agent. He's a high DI, and his clientele are high DIs. And anytime Sal has a problem with a client, it's because they're probably an S or a C.
I have a quick question. I'm looking at my my printout, and it has like D equals 3, I equals 3, S equals 4, C equals 2. What is that? Can you see that?
Is that Tony Robbins?
Whatever link you sent us. Yeah.
They changed a few things. I'd have to look at that.
Okay.
Send it to me digitally.
And then I realized that my D actually does go above the S a little bit.
Yeah, you
Anyway.
see it midline is 50, and at 50,
Mhm.
anything below 50 doesn't really rank. So anything above
Okay.
50 is what we talk about ranking.
Okay, well, D beat out S on the above 50 line on this one.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, I see our time has ended. I hope you guys got some out of this. I hope you enjoyed Ignite and got some out of it. Check in with your coaches. Let them know that you had Broker Bob as the last session, and here's the lead generation based upon the disc. And within all this, I think I want to focus on this. Those are your P's, your priorities, and your GPS. And just stay focused on those 3 priorities. Don't think you got to do everything. And if it's just one priority, do the one. Do one of them until you master it, until you move on to the next. Okay? All right, kids.
Thank you. It was very good today. Thanks a
Yeah.
lot. It was a great way to end it.
Glad you guys are all with us. And now I'm
Thank
going to go answer really short emails.
Okay.
now we
Thanks,
know
Roger
how
Bob.
to now we know how to like communicate with you.
You coming from the pager time probably.
All right, guys. Have a good day.
Thank